What if VANILLUXE was in Gen 1 OU? Now, VANILLUXE can be added to the list of Pokemon that, quite literally, no one has ever thought about or even considered in competitive, except if it were to exist in Gen 1 exactly. Because, just like a lot of other Pokemon, it has the perfect tools to where it can just abuse some of the Gen 1 mechanics. For VANILLUXE here, it's abusing Explosion, Stab, and 90% accurate Blizzard, and kind of the crit rate. Because this guy has really weird stats, but it might be hard for some of you to believe. These are damn good stats for Gen 1. Like, holy crap. Both that defense and special defense are above average. That special attack is great. That attack stat's also good considering you have Explosion. 71 HP is average, but I would actually argue with all the other stats here, amazing. And with 79 speed, you're faster than Cloyster. And as far as I'm concerned, anything faster than Cloyster should be considered just fast. So this is already insane. And VANILLUXE's crit rate isn't even that bad. I don't know what it is on top of my head, because I don't know any Pokemon that are relevant that have like 80 speed or around that. Because the only one that comes to mind is Venusaur. Since Venusaur has Razor Leaf, I don't bother checking what its crit rate is, because it's gonna crit anyways. Or go for Swords Dance and Sweet Powder, where crits don't matter in the first place. So yeah. But it doesn't really matter though, because it's VANILLUXE. You just are really doing two things, or three things technically. You're tanking ice moves, not getting frozen, you're hitting with Stab Blizzards, and if it looks like it's pretty bad, you're going for Explosion. It has other moves like Hyper Beam, but I figure you wouldn't really use it when you have Explosion. I could try to look at this again, and one thing I'll just give you guys a quick FYI for right now is that I made these replays early in the morning yesterday. I had a council meeting, which by the way you should watch, and I kind of forgot I made this, so my knowledge isn't like the best, but I feel like I have a decent idea of what I'm talking about. But yeah, like there's Ice Beam obviously, but outside of like the normal stuff like Toxic Rest, Substitute, things that everything has, everything here is mostly just newer moves, which sucks a lot. Because as you can see here, it has Light Screen, not even Reflect, Light Screen, which I would say is probably better than Hyper Beam. Because if you're putting in Hyper Beam, you're either getting rid of Acid Armor or Light Screen. But either way, it doesn't matter. Because Hyper Beam is a good move, yes, but that's always needed with another physical move. Body Slam, Earthquake, or even if you're desperate, something like, let's say, Strength, is what's needed to do decent damage to something like Chansey and put it in range of Hyper Beam. The vast majority of Pokemon just do not have the range to OHKO Chansey with Hyper Beam without a crit. VANILLUXE is one of them. And with only Blizzard, which only has 8 power points anyways, you can't really put Chansey in a damage range to kill with Hyper Beam. If that's the case, you're better off using Explosion. Now maybe you can argue Ice Beam, and to be honest, I probably would agree with you. You could probably get rid of Light Screen for that, or it depends. Acid Armor I think is probably better, mostly because the special moves being used on you is most likely Psychic. Not only are you getting boned either way if you get a special drop, but with things like Alakazam, with such a great crit rate, you're just gonna die either way. So, you know what? Yeah, I think you can get rid of Ice Beam, or get rid of Light Screen for Ice Beam. That seems to make more sense. And with this, you hit decently hard. You're like in some ways it might look like a poor man's Articuno, but I think you're better. You don't hit as hard, but you don't have the flying typing, which means you aren't taking Blizzards neutrally, which I only realized today during the council meeting, or yesterday technically. By the way, if you like these videos where it's just like talking, just something for you to use, like listen to in the background, we don't necessarily like watching replays or just watching the video itself, I think you should definitely watch the council meetings, because those are just really long podcasts of just me talking with the other people about what if Gen 1 formats. I think you would enjoy it. But anyways, let's get on to the replays. Shall we? I think we shall. Starting off with the boy himself, Tauros. And because of how bulky you are, you do a great job tanking those body slams. And you can two-shot Tauros. As you can imagine, Tauros does not appreciate that. It's pretty scary. But how does Fire Blast do? Well, Fire Blast inherently isn't even, like... Well, I mean, obviously it's gonna hit harder. I don't think anyone's surprised by that. Technically it's still a 3-hit KO. But it's also not even, like, the burn is super, like, meaningful. Because VANILLUXE, sure, Explosion's weakened. But you're hitting super hard special anyways. Maybe with a burn, you might get a damage range, but that's still Tauros losing half of its health. So VANILLUXE is a pretty good matchup against Tauros, surprisingly. And then against Snorlax, Body Slam is nowhere near as annoying when you have Acid Armor. And I guess you can maybe argue Acid Armor Rest, now that I think about it, if you specifically want your VANILLUXE to be a counter towards physical attackers. Doesn't sound too bad, honestly. But it definitely just helps you beat Snorlax pretty easily. And VANILLUXE, like, it might need to go for Explosion, but even then, it can probably do some decent damage. I'm not sure why VANILLUXE got so many crits during this replay. I know it's 79 speed, but I don't think the crit rate is that great, right? Like, this has to be, like, just, like, above average. Or maybe VANILLUXE is just really excited. Amnesialax technically does better, but also depends. If it's an Amnesialax that has Body Slam and Ice Beam, VANILLUXE just really easily deals with that. If it has Thunderbolt, if you're still using Light Screen, it can actually handle Snorlax pretty decently well. It can fish for freezes, or it can just fish for crits. In worst case scenario, it can always go for Explosion. And if that Explosion is a crit, you've probably already done some damage to it, so that will be a KO. So being able to KO Snorlax is actually really good. As you see there, even with max special, Thunderbolt only did 31%. That's insane. Now that I'm looking at it again, Snorlax actually might need to be put in the great matchup. It probably depends on the moves that you're using for VANILLUXE, but now that I'm rewatching both of these, VANILLUXE just does a decent job countering Snorlax. And that's insane. You don't usually get those unless it's like a ghost or fighting type. Now Chansey is... I mean, luckily with the Explosion, it's never unwinnable. And normally I say Explosion, like, it's not really that good. Or not that it's not good, but if you're forced to go for an Explosion, I usually argue that counts as like an unwinnable matchup. But I'll make the exception for Chansey. But that's only because Chansey is such a high value Pokemon that Explosion is always worth it. It's not like, let's say, what's a good example? It's not like, let's say, Jolteon using Thunderbolt on Cloyster. Let's say Cloyster barely survives and has to go for Explosion. That's like, Jolteon isn't the most high value Pokemon that your opponent has, so it's usually fine. I don't care what the context is, I'm pretty sure Chansey is almost always a higher value Pokemon than VANILLUXE. So VANILLUXE KOing with Explosion is never a bad trade. So this is a situation where I think it could go either way, where Explosion does play a big factor into that. That's just how I see it anyways. Zam is pretty straightforward. It crits and gets special drops. VANILLUXE can't do much. So let me just take this opportunity to just remind you that VANILLUXE will be in Season 3 of Generation Jumble. I took you guys' like criticism in my community post lately, so I'm going to try harder to turn the videos into just not just reacting to replays, but either just having an actual commentary with a co-host, or having the first half of the video be an actual discussion, just like my what if videos. I'm going to try harder to make it better for those of you who just don't care too much about just an actual format and care more about just talking about hypothetical, like, things in Gen 1. But yeah, Vanilluxe will be in Season 3. It'll be interesting. Now, Cloyster, this is a very awkward matchup. Because with widescreen, if you are still using it, Cloyster can't really hurt you. You can't hurt it either. And I'm pretty sure... What's it called? I guess technically, Blizzard's doing a little bit more. But it doesn't matter because Cloyster can fish for a crit, or it can just go for rest. Obviously with the explosion, that's always gonna do, like, 50%, but not great. I guess a crit can kill. So, I think this is could go either way. But it's in the way that, like, neither of them really enjoy the matchup. They kind of hate it. I would say Cloyster can technically outstall. But also, you would be more likely just pivoting anyways. Or VANILLUXE could legitimately stall out Cloyster's power points. If VANILLUXE does have rest and widescreen, I don't know how good that is, but it's worth testing, I guess. That can stall out Cloyster. Being faster than Cloyster definitely helps a lot. Not to mention being able to always switch into Cloyster's wizards are... That's just huge. So, I don't know where to rank that. You can judge it yourself. And obviously with Executor, you do really well. If it does have Sweep Powder, or if something else is already asleep, let's be real, you can very easily play around that. VANILLUXE just gets a free KO. There's not much Executor is gonna do. Even if you get a special drop, 2 Blizzards, I am more than confident is gonna be a KO. Or worst case scenario, like VANILLUXE goes for Boom. Now Gengar is funny. Because of its high special, VANILLUXE can't do that much against it. But at the same time, a freeze is a freeze. I'd still argue this is a bad matchup for VANILLUXE, but it can do some decent damage. And I guess with Nightshade, or actually let me look at this again. If you have widescreen, it has to go for Nightshade, which is a 4-hit KO. But if you don't bother going for that, I guess you can use Thunderbolt or Slate. I don't know, actually. If Blizzard's a 3-hit KO, can VANILLUXE win sometimes? Probably not. Or, I don't know. Like, maybe that should be put in good go either way. You guys have to tell me what you think in the comments about that one. Because now I'm confusing myself. Jolteon is probably a could go either way as well. Obviously, widescreen can help you. And with that, you might win. But also, Thunderbolt's very scary. So it's really just 3-hit KOing each other. Jolteon can probably win more times, because there's a better crit rate. But at the same time, widescreen could be annoying if you're using it. And there's always freeze, or VANILLUXE getting a crit, because its crit rate isn't bad either. So it could go either way. But usually one that Jolteon usually wins, but it doesn't really matter as much, because Jolteon's a very easy Pokemon to counter. Yeah, Jinx. It dies to Explosion, but Psychic does decent, or like, it does like a 4th, and Blizzard doesn't really hurt. Technically, I'll put that as a bad matchup. At least that's how I put it in the tier list, but maybe that could be kind of as good. And obviously, Rhydon is great. Even if the damage range isn't always consistent. Like, I'm not sure if it is, I only made the one replay. But it doesn't matter. Even if, like, it's only a 95% chance to OHKO, I don't think Rhydon would ever risk it. And then with Slowbro, you just have nothing against it. You can go for Explosion, I guess. But it gets, like I said, forcing up the boom is not very good. Now Starmie, it has Psychic, so Lightscreen doesn't really do that good a job to help you. Which means you only really have Explosion to really use on it. Which, I guess to be fair, a crit as you saw there does actual good damage. And a crit Explosion will always kill. But it's like, the actual matchup itself is always one where Starmie's winning. And last but not least, we have Zapdos. Zapdos can hit hard, but Blizzard hits just a little bit harder. So having a Pokemon that's great against physical attackers, and also gets 3-hit KO'd by Tauros and Zapdos, it obviously can't beat both, but being able to handle just one of them is just huge. You absolutely love that. Well, that's enough of that. Here's the tier list. Some things oh, I guess I already had Gengar quick away the way. How about that? This actually might need to be changed to Great, now that I'm looking at it again. If you really want to, you could put these and could go either way, just because Explosion is that good. But I don't think I will, because it just... like I said, like, doesn't really... like, you're losing your VANILLUXE either way. Now that I actually did the video, now I'm starting to think that VANILLUXE will be way better in Gen 1 than I initially thought. For those of you who don't know, some Pokemon that are going to be in Generation Jumble Season 3 are going to be the Tapus, Palossand, Gastrodon, Alolan Raichu. And everyone was thinking, okay, well, Palossand's just going to be the better Rhydon. And even Gastrodon is probably going to have more merit. But Gastrodon will probably be inferior to Palossand. Now that I'm seeing just how strong VANILLUXE is, being able to boost its defenses, a really strong stab Blizzard, and Explosion, now I'm starting to see a niche that Gastrodon can have. Because it's going to be the only ground type that isn't actually weak to VANILLUXE. Which, with Blizzard, that can still hurt, but Gastrodon has Recover, and it has Amnesia. So this is interesting. There's going to be a lot more nuance than I originally thought when it came to this season, which is good. We still have one more tournament for Generation Jumble Season 2 we gotta take care of. So maybe in 2 weeks, we'll have Season 3, who knows yet. But, yeah, a lot of fun things to look at in the future. Thank you all for watching. Until next time, this is Groundback, and I look forward to hearing from you.